Years have passed since that historic moment when the Queen stood before the public, surrounded by curious, anxious, and doubtful eyes. She spoke just a few audible words into the cameras, but what followed those silent, barely moving lips became a mystery that captured the world's imagination. Countless theories emerged. Experts tried to decode her unspoken words, but none could go beyond speculation. Until now. A world-renowned lip-reading expert, someone who has worked with international security agencies and top media outlets, has finally come forward. After meticulously analyzing every frame, every subtle movement of the Queen's lips, he has confirmed what the Queen actually said that day might just change the way we view everything that happened. So, what were those hidden words? Why were they kept from the public? And why is the truth only being revealed now? The answer will surprise you and perhaps change your perception of that iconic day forever. Queen Elizabeth II spent most of her life quietly inside the palace, far from the world's constant attention. People rarely heard her speak openly about politics or world affairs, and interviews with her were almost unheard of. This was the royal way to keep personal feelings hidden from the public, and the Queen followed this tradition faithfully. But every now and then, during public appearances or special moments, small pieces of her real self would gently shine through. In those times, people saw her sense of humor, her quiet frustrations, and her warmth. These simple, honest moments made many people love her even more. As a young girl, Queen Elizabeth wasn't sent to school like other children. She was taught privately at home. But when the Second World War began, she refused to sit back and watch. Instead, she decided to help her country. She joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, learning how to drive and fix army trucks, just like regular citizens. It was a brave and strong move, showing the world that she was more than just a royal figure. She was someone ready to serve. One unforgettable moment happened in 2007 during a grand photo session with famous American photographer Annie Leibovitz. The Queen, dressed in her heavy ceremonial robes and crown, had agreed to pose for pictures. At first, the room was filled with formality and quiet respect. But things changed when Leibovitz suggested that the Queen remove her crown for a more relaxed photo. Those in the room remembered how quickly the Queen responded, not with a joke, but with sharp words. She pointed to her royal attire and asked why she would remove the crown when she was dressed like that. "I've had enough of this," she was heard saying, clearly frustrated. Later, the media shared a preview of the scene, making it seem like the Queen angrily left the room, but it turned out the video had been edited out of order. The network later apologized, but the moment stuck in people's minds as one of the rare times the Queen's irritation was caught on camera. Another small, honest moment came in 2002 during a public event where Prince Philip was taking part in a horse-driving competition. Eager photographers gathered too closely around the Queen's seat. She grew visibly annoyed and, in a firm voice, told them to give her some space. It was a simple but powerful reminder that even the calmest people have their limits, especially when it comes to personal comfort. One of the more surprising stories took place in 1954 on a royal tour in Australia. It is said that the Queen and Prince Philip got into a heated argument inside a cottage. A film crew nearby saw Prince Philip storm out in anger, only to be called back by the Queen. Though the public never saw the footage, a biography about Prince Philip later confirmed it happened. This revealed that, even though they often looked perfect in public, their marriage faced its challenges like any other. As she grew older, Queen Elizabeth's softer side appeared more often. In 2016, during her 90th birthday celebration at Buckingham Palace, a lighthearted moment was caught on video. While standing on the balcony, the Queen noticed Prince William crouching down to speak with young Prince George. Without hesitation, she leaned in and gently told William to stand up. The sweet, motherly moment quickly spread across the internet, reminding everyone that, even at joyful family events, tradition still mattered to her. But this is one of the few times the Queen spoke out about what she felt. Stick with us. Darren McGrady, a former royal chef, spent more than a decade working in the kitchens of Buckingham Palace, Sandringham, and Balmoral. In that time, he learned many things about Queen Elizabeth II, not just about her favorite meals, but also about her quiet strength and love for order. The Queen was known for being very particular about her food. Every dish had to be carefully planned, and every ingredient needed to be just right. Nothing was ever left to chance. Each day, a detailed menu was written out for the Queen. It listed everything she would eat for breakfast, lunch, tea, and dinner. If the chefs wanted to try a new dish or add a little twist to an old one, they had to write it down and send it to the Queen for approval. Even the smallest changes needed her permission. The royal kitchen was a place of strict rules, where even a small mistake could be noticed. One sunny summer at Balmoral Castle, McGrady made a tiny slip that turned into a memorable story. He decided to add a light, summery dessert to the menu called Veiled Farmer's Daughters. It was a simple and delicious treat made of stewed fruits, cinnamon crumble, and soft whipped cream, perfect for a warm day in the countryside. While he did remember to write the name of the dessert on the menu, he forgot something very important in the recipe. The next day, the Queen sent back a short handwritten note. In her slightly hurried handwriting, she asked, "Who are the Veiled Farmer's Daughters?" It wasn't a joke or a playful question. It was the Queen's way of pointing out a break in the palace's careful routine. McGrady later admitted it was one of the few times he had truly annoyed the Queen. In her world, where everything had its place and every detail mattered, a missing recipe was no small thing. Thankfully, McGrady quickly sent in the recipe. To his relief, the Queen liked the dessert after trying it. It soon became a favorite on warm summer days. But the lesson stayed with McGrady in the palace. No detail was too small to matter. The Queen's careful nature wasn't only about desserts. She had strong opinions about all her meals. One surprising fact was her dislike for garlic. It was never allowed in the palace kitchens because she didn't like the smell it left behind, especially when she had to meet guests, world leaders, or attend public events. The royal chefs knew this rule well and never included it in her dishes. When it came to her favorite foods, Queen Elizabeth preferred simple, elegant meals. One dish she loved was Dover sole with spinach and courgettes. It was healthy, lightly flavored, and always beautifully presented. When The Crown first arrived on Netflix, it quickly became one of the most talked about shows in the world. People everywhere were drawn in by its beautiful costumes, powerful acting, and fascinating story about Queen Elizabeth II's life. From the moment she became queen to the many challenges she faced along the way, viewers loved the drama, the royal secrets, and the behind-the-scenes look at palace life. But while fans were glued to their screens, the real royal family, especially Queen Elizabeth herself, felt very differently about it. At first, the Queen didn't seem too bothered by the show. In fact, it was Prince Edward and his wife Sophie who first suggested that she watch it. They even brought DVDs of The Crown to Windsor Castle for the family to watch together during quiet evenings. Surprisingly, the Queen found the early episodes entertaining. She enjoyed seeing moments from her past come to life on screen and appreciated how the show was based on true events. Actress Vanessa Kirby, who played Princess Margaret in the early seasons, once shared that Princess Eugenie told her the Queen liked the show. It seemed The Crown had found a good balance between telling a dramatic story while still showing respect to the royal family. But as the show continued and new seasons were released, the tone of the story changed. The series began to focus more on family conflicts and personal struggles. Some storylines were made more dramatic than they were, just to keep the audience hooked. And this didn't sit well with the palace. One episode in season 2 caused special heartache for the Queen. It told the story of young Prince Charles at Gordonstone, a tough boarding school in Scotland. Prince Philip, who had also gone to the same school as a boy, believed it would make Charles strong and independent. But in the episode, Charles was shown as lonely, bullied, and miserable, writing sad letters home. What hurt the Queen most was how the show made Prince Philip look. Matt Smith, the actor playing him, portrayed Philip as cold and uncaring toward his son. In one scene, he even called Charles weak. While viewers were moved by the emotion of the scene, for Queen Elizabeth, it felt personal. It wasn't just a TV show anymore, it was her family's story, and it didn't feel fair. People close to the Queen said she was deeply upset. Even though she understood that the crown was fictional, she worried that millions of viewers around the world would believe it was the full truth. Prince Philip had always been a loving, involved father in his way, and seeing him painted as cold and distant hurt her heart. Throughout their long marriage, Queen Elizabeth had always protected her family's image. They had been through scandals, rumors, and endless public attention. But this was different. The crown made private family moments public, and to her, some things should have stayed within the family. Those who knew the royal family best said the show wasn't completely fair. Yes, Prince Charles had spoken openly about how tough his school years were, but the Queen and Prince Philip had made parenting decisions together, worrying, discussing, and caring like any other parents would. It wasn't as simple as the show made it seem. Prince Charles later admitted that Gordon Stone was hard for him, but he also said it taught him important lessons about strength and independence. Unfortunately, the crown only showed the sad parts, leaving out the valuable things he learned there. As the crown began covering more recent royal events, the royal family grew even more uneasy. People, especially younger viewers, started to believe everything they saw on the show was fact. The Queen and her advisors worried that people would forget the difference between entertainment and history. The crown might have overstepped, but the Queen handled it with grace. For as long as anyone could remember, the royal family followed a simple rule: stay silent. No matter what people said in newspapers, magazines, or on television, the monarchy rarely responded. It was part of their tradition to keep their thoughts private, showing calm faces to the world. And Queen Elizabeth, more than anyone, lived by this rule. Even as stories about her and her family filled the headlines, she never openly complained. She chose to stay quiet, carrying herself with grace and dignity. Whether it was a documentary, a newspaper article, or a TV drama, the Queen believed it was better to let the world talk while she continued her work. But behind the palace walls, it was a different story. Many people believed that Queen Elizabeth supported the show, but in truth, she never gave it her approval. This misunderstanding made things harder for the royal family. They had to be extra careful with what they said and did, knowing the world was watching. For generations, the monarchy valued secrecy and elegance. There were certain parts of royal life meant to be kept private, away from the curious eyes of the public. But the crown changed that. It blended truth with fiction in a way that made people believe every word. It didn't just tell old royal stories, it revealed painful personal moments, too. The show touched on sensitive subjects like Princess Diana's struggles and controversies involving other family members. Each new season brought fresh headlines, new rumors, and endless questions about the royal family's private lives. The Queen and her loved ones had to face these waves of attention over and over again. A former palace staff member once shared that Queen Elizabeth accepted this quietly. She understood people's love for royal stories. She knew the world would always be curious about life behind palace gates. But deep down, she believed some things should remain sacred, especially when it came to her family. Throughout her long reign, Queen Elizabeth followed one simple principle: privacy, duty, and grace come first. She led with kindness and strength without ever needing to explain herself. She believed her actions spoke louder than words. And so, even when the crown stirred up emotions and headlines, she stayed silent. Her close friends and staff knew how she truly felt. They saw her sadness when the show twisted personal moments or made up stories about the people she loved. And though she never publicly spoke out against the crown, those who knew her could sense the quiet pain behind her calm smile. For the British royal family, weddings have always meant more than just two people saying, "I do." They are grand events filled with tradition, history, and public attention. Every royal wedding is carefully planned to show unity, strength, and a connection to the past. And for Queen Elizabeth II, these weddings were not just for show. They touched her heart in quiet, personal ways. Even though the world saw sparkling crowns, fancy dresses, and cheering crowds, the Queen often carried complicated feelings inside. She remembered her wedding day, her promises, and the weight of royal duty. And while she smiled for the cameras, her thoughts were sometimes filled with worries only a mother and monarch would understand. One of the biggest royal weddings in history took place on July 29, 1981. Lady Diana Spencer, just 20 years old, married Prince Charles in front of 750 million people around the world. Diana looked like a princess from a fairy tale in her beautiful white dress. The day felt magical. The streets of London were filled with awe, music, and excitement. But behind the beautiful scenes, quiet problems were already there. On the famous balcony of Buckingham Palace, the Queen stood beside Diana, waving to the happy crowds. To the public, it was a perfect picture. But later, people close to the palace revealed that the Queen shared a few quiet words with Diana, gentle words filled with kindness, acknowledging how heavy the crown could feel, even for a young princess. While the world celebrated, the truth was harder to face. The night before the wedding, Prince Charles told Diana to be brave and give a good show to the people, but he also admitted his heart wasn't fully in it. These words hurt Diana deeply, and though she put on a brave face, her fairy tale was already starting to crack. The Queen likely sensed the tension between her son and his bride, but as always, she stayed neutral in public. Her duty was to protect the monarchy, keep traditions alive, and avoid stepping into personal matters. Still, the pain from that troubled marriage would linger in the royal family for years to come. Then, in 2005, the royal family witnessed a very different kind of wedding. Prince Charles married Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman many had blamed for breaking up Charles and Diana's marriage. At first, people disliked Camilla, calling her names and judging their relationship. Slowly, though, opinions began to soften, but it remained a sensitive topic. Unlike the usual royal weddings held in grand churches, Charles and Camilla chose a simple civil ceremony. This raised eyebrows, especially because Charles was the future king. And when Queen Elizabeth didn't attend the ceremony, people whispered about possible disapproval. But the truth was quite different. As the head of the Church of England, the Queen was bound by church rules, which at the time discouraged remarriage after divorce within the church. Attending a civil wedding might have seemed like breaking those rules. It wasn't about personal dislike, it was about duty. Still, the Queen made sure to show her love in her special way. She attended the blessing that followed at St. George's Chapel, and afterwards she hosted a warm reception at Windsor Castle. There, she made a rare, light-hearted joke, comparing Charles and Camilla's long, difficult journey to a steeplechase, a tough horse race filled with obstacles. When Prince William married Kate Middleton in April 2011, it wasn't just another royal wedding. It was a fresh start for a family that had faced tough times, scandals, heartbreak, and plenty of public judgment. But this day felt different. William and Kate's love seemed honest, steady, and filled with kindness. Though Kate wasn't born into royalty, she carried herself with so much grace, calm, and quiet strength. The public adored her, and when Queen Elizabeth welcomed her into the royal family, it felt like a true sign of approval from the heart of the monarchy. On the big day, over 2,000 people filled Westminster Abbey, while the streets outside were packed with smiling faces, waving flags, and cheers of excitement. Around the world, millions sat in front of their TVs, watching this beautiful love story unfold. Kate wore a breathtaking gown designed by Sarah Burton for Alexander McQueen. It was the perfect mix of tradition and modern elegance. Made for a future queen, the dress quickly became one of the most famous wedding dresses in history. The day sparkled with grand celebrations, but one tiny sweet moment stood out, a private glimpse of the Queen's softer side. A royal historian later shared how, during the wedding, Queen Elizabeth leaned over and quietly spoke to Prince Philip. It was a rare, tender exchange between a couple who usually kept their emotions hidden from the world. What caught the Queen's attention wasn't the huge crowd, the flowers, or the music. It was the carriage William and Kate chose for their ride after the wedding. They picked the 1902 State Landau, a beautiful open-top royal carriage used in past royal weddings. Most people didn't even think twice about it. The state landau was classic and elegant and had carried other royal brides and grooms, like Prince Charles and Princess Diana. But to Queen Elizabeth, one carriage held a very special place in her heart, the glass coach. The glass coach was more than just a ride for the Queen. It was the same carriage she rode in on her wedding day back in 1947. Princess Anne had used it too, and so had Princess Diana. To the Queen, it was filled with memories of family, love, and royal tradition. A skilled lip reader later suggested that the Queen might have quietly told Prince Philip she would have preferred they use the glass coach instead. It was a tiny moment, unnoticed by the crowd, but it spoke volumes about the Queen's love for family traditions and the little details that connect the past to the present. For many years before Prince Harry married Meghan Markle in 2018, the royal family had been in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Scandals, heartbreak, and family problems followed them everywhere. But Queen Elizabeth II, with her calm heart and steady hands, always managed to keep things together. By the time Harry and Meghan's wedding came around, the Queen had seen it all. But this wedding would test her patience in ways no one expected. The big day was beautiful. It took place at St. George's Chapel in Windsor. The guest list was filled with royal family members, famous faces, and world leaders. Millions of people around the world tuned in, excited to see this fresh new chapter in royal history. Meghan, a former American actress and a divorced woman, brought something different to the royal family. At first, Queen Elizabeth welcomed her warmly. Meghan was invited to Christmas at Sandringham and even joined the Queen for special events. It seemed like a happy start, but behind the smiles, trouble was brewing. Royal experts later shared that the days leading up to the wedding were tense. The first sign of trouble came with Meghan's wedding dress. Instead of choosing a soft cream or ivory, as tradition suggested for second marriages, Meghan picked a bright, pure white gown with a long, 16-foot veil. No one could deny its beauty, but it raised some eyebrows. Royal author Tom Bower said the Queen quietly wondered why a divorced woman would wear such a traditional white gown, a color meant to symbolize purity in a first marriage, though she never spoke about it publicly. People close to her believed she was a little surprised. Lady Elizabeth Anson, a relative of the Queen, later said the Queen thought the white was a bit too stark. It wasn't about fashion, it was about the message. When Camilla married Prince Charles, she wore a soft cream dress and no veil, showing quiet respect for old traditions. Meghan's beautiful dress, while lovely, seemed to skip over those small but meaningful customs. Another issue was the famous tiara incident. Meghan had her heart set on a particular tiara, but permission was denied. The royal jewels are looked after by Angela Kelly, a trusted advisor and dresser to the Queen. She followed strict rules about which jewels could be worn. Rumors spread that Meghan wasn't pleased with how things were handled and that the Queen heard about a disagreement between Meghan and Angela Kelly. Those close to the Queen said she wasn't happy about it. She believed everyone, especially those who worked so hard to uphold royal traditions, deserved kindness and respect. Then came another difficult moment. Meghan's father, Thomas Markle. Days before the wedding, he became tangled in a scandal for staging photos with paparazzi. Afterward, he claimed he was too ill to travel. The Queen quietly advised Meghan to mend things with her father before the wedding, hoping to calm the situation. But their relationship was already broken. In the end, Meghan walked down the aisle with Prince Charles instead. Even Prince Harry made an unexpected request to wear his military uniform with a beard. Royal officers were expected to be clean-shaven for formal events, even if they were no longer in active service. But after a quiet discussion, the Queen agreed. Many believed it was because of her deep love for her grandson. Yet, it was another gentle bending of the rules. On the wedding day, Queen Elizabeth looked as graceful as ever, but sharp-eyed viewers noticed moments when her expression turned serious, perhaps a little tired. Behind the bright celebrations and joyful music, the Queen carried a heavy heart. People close to her later said that, while she supported Harry and Meghan's marriage, She had grown weary of the drama that seemed to follow. Privately, the Queen made a rare decision to stop worrying about it. After so many years of carefully managing family problems, she chose to let go of this one. But the problems didn't end after the wedding. There were public arguments, misunderstandings, and endless stories in the press. Even though the Queen handled everything with her usual calm, those near her could see she was growing tired. In 2021, the world was surprised when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced the birth of their baby girl. They named her Lilibet Diana, a name filled with deep meaning. The name Lilibet wasn't just any name. It was Queen Elizabeth's childhood nickname. When the Queen was a little girl, she couldn't say Elizabeth properly. She called herself Lilibet, and soon her parents, her sister Margaret, and later her beloved husband, Prince Philip, all lovingly called her by that name. To the world, she was Her Majesty the Queen, but to those closest to her heart, she was simply Lilibet. When Harry and Meghan chose the name for their daughter, people wondered how the Queen would feel about it. Harry and Meghan told the world they had the Queen's blessing. But behind the palace walls, whispers told a different story. Some royal insiders quietly claimed the Queen hadn't been asked before the name was made public. According to royal expert Phil Dampier, the Queen felt a little uneasy about it not because of the name itself, but because of how it was shared with the world. It seemed to some in the palace like people were being led to believe the Queen fully approved and agreed with it, when in truth she might have been caught off guard. Inside the royal household, people also worried about what might come next. Would photos of baby Lilibet with the Queen be used for media deals or public promotions? The Queen, always careful about protecting her family and her image, quietly decided there would be no official photo released of her with little Lilibet. She never made a public statement about it, but everyone around her knew where she stood. This quiet hurt wasn't the first the Queen felt from Harry and Meghan. After Princess Diana's tragic passing, Queen Elizabeth had tried to give Harry extra love and guidance, both as a grandmother and as a monarch. She had always held him close to her heart. But in 2021, when Harry and Meghan sat down with Oprah Winfrey for their famous interview, it left the Queen deeply heartbroken. In that interview, the couple spoke about pain, neglect, and even hinted at racism within the royal family. These words traveled around the world in minutes. For Queen Elizabeth, who had spent her entire life believing family problems should be handled quietly and privately, this was a painful moment. She believed the crown wasn't just a crown, it was a duty, a promise to serve, and something bigger than any one person. Seeing it become part of public gossip hurt her deeply. People close to her said it wasn't just the words that wounded her, it was how private family matters were exposed for the world to see. Through it all, she never lashed out at Harry and Meghan. She never took away their royal titles, nor did she make harsh public statements about them. But something had quietly changed. The strong bond they once shared was never quite the same. The trust, so carefully built over years, had been chipped away. As Queen Elizabeth grew older, her heart felt both proud and sad. Proud because the monarchy still stood strong after all its trials. Sad because she could feel the growing distance from some of those she loved most. After years of speculation, analysis, and doubt, the Queen's whispered words during that historic moment have finally been uncovered. No longer just a gap filled with imagination or assumptions, but a real message, brief, concise, yet heavy with meaning. A message that not only revealed her thoughts in that very moment, but also hinted at a deeper truth hidden beneath the polished image of the royal family. Now that we know what the Queen actually said, the next question is, why was it kept a secret for so long? And who decided what should or shouldn't be made public? If you believe that truths like this deserve to be heard, we invite you to leave a comment, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Together, we'll continue uncovering the untold stories and hidden corners behind the British monarchy.